Lakefront living used to be simple. You bought a little cabin, dragged a rusty grill onto the deck, and parked a questionable fishing boat by the dock. You called that paradise. Now, in a lot of America, lakefront living means $1 million house with 6 bathrooms, 12 windows nobody can afford to clean, and a real estate agent describing a swamp-adjacent backyard as a rare waterfront serenity. But here's the good news. The dream is not completely dead. It's just hiding in places rich people haven't invaded yet. And there's still states where you can find lakefront homes that don't require lottery winnings, tech stock money, or marrying a family that owns half of Minnesota. It's a lot simpler these days. There are places where the water is real, the prices are still somewhat sane, and the neighbors are more likely to own fishing boats than wine cellars. So today, we're looking at 10 states where lakefront homes are still shockingly affordable. Let's take a look. Number 10, New York. New York makes this list because the state is basically 2 different countries sharing the same tax form. Downstate New York is expensive enough to make you think that the price you're looking at might actually be in pesos. But upstate New York still has lake towns where normal people can at least enter the conversation. One good example is Caroga Lake, I hope I pronounced that right, which showed up on affordable lake town rankings with a median home listing price of around $210,000. That's in 2024. That's not exactly free, but for Lake Town in New York, that's practically a real estate version of finding a brand name cereal at the dollar store. We all love that, don't we? The catch is location. The famous parts of the Adirondacks, Finger Lakes, and anything that rich weekenders have already discovered can get expensive fast. But if you're willing to look beyond the glossy vacation towns, New York still has lake areas where you can get scenery, seasons, and a little peace without taking out a mortgage you know you'll never actually pay off. But you know you're going to sell it before then. The kids get a little older and you don't feel like going to the lake anymore, and you sell it off 10 years into that mortgage. That's how it works. New York is a great place to buy a lakefront property or near the lake property. Number 9, Texas. Texas has a surprising amount of affordable lake living because the state is huge and not every lake is sitting right next to Austin tech money, Dallas suburb expansions, or a boat club where everyone wears performance polo shirts and talks about their broker. Zapata, near Falcon Lake and the Mexican border, they've got median listing prices about $178,000, and that's cheaper than many ordinary homes in places where the closest water feature is a retention pond behind a Costco. Is Zapata a great town? It's not the best, but it is cheap. Texas lakefront comes with a few fine print goblins you should know about. Some lakes deal with drought. Water levels swing, heat, and rural isolation are a big part of this. Literally in Zapata, your house could be 10 yards from the lake or 100 yards from the lake, depending on the season and water levels. There are places where the view is amazing, but the summer feels like someone let their giant data center overheat and they opened up the doors to let the heat out and just wiped out the entire county. Still, if you want water access, low prices, and more space, Texas belongs on your list of places to buy a lake house. Number 8, Louisiana. Louisiana is affordable because it has a lot of water and a lot of reasons buyers get nervous around water. That is the Louisiana real estate bargain. Beautiful, unique, culturally rich, and suddenly your insurance quote walks in wearing a ski mask. Lockport near Lake Fields is a pretty good, cheap lake town in a county where the median listing price is around $145,000. That's shockingly low for a place that comes with lake access. I mean, even if Louisiana comes with flooding, storms, humidity, and infrastructure that occasionally feels like it was assembled during a lunch break. Yeah, we just talked about this on a recent video. The infrastructure in Louisiana is just horrible. But this is one of those states where home prices are only part of the story. Buyers need to study flood zones, insurance costs, elevation, drainage, and storm history. Louisiana can absolutely offer cheap lakefront living, but you better read the paperwork like it contains the location of buried treasure. And if you're going to find some buried treasure, you're going to find it in Louisiana or North Carolina, near where Blackbeard used to hang out. Yeah, Bath. We talked about it the other day. Bath, North Carolina. They think there's hidden treasure there. Go there instead of Louisiana on Lake Town. You might find some treasure. Who knows? Number 7, Illinois. Illinois is not always cheap, especially when property taxes show up with a folding chair and decide to stay forever. But lakefront affordability still exists in parts of this state, especially away from the luxury pockets and the Chicago area towns where everyone seems to have a second home and a boat named after a divorce. Fox Lake made Realtors.com affordable lake town rankings with a median home listing price of about $159,000. That is not bad. That is a strong number for a lake community with access to Chain of Lakes region, boating, fishing, and proximity to Chicago Metro without paying full, I need to be near the office 3 days a week prices. The upside is obvious: Midwest lake access, decent regional connectivity, and more affordability than you ever get in coastal markets. The downside is the obvious also. Illinois property taxes can make your escrow account start smoking, but for buyers who want lake life without crossing into full luxury nonsense, Illinois has options for you, believe it or not. Number 6, Minnesota. Minnesota has so many lakes that eventually you stop asking where the lakes are and start asking where the lakes aren't. It is one of America's Great Lakes states, and while most of the desirable cabins can get pricey, smaller towns still offer real opportunities. I mean, they've got to have some affordable lakefront property here because this is the state of 10,000 lakes or something like that. I read something that's actually like 13,000, but who cares? Albert Lee, surrounded by several lakes, appears on affordable lake lists all the frickin' time with their median home listing price of about $177,000. Not bad for Minnesota. That's a strong example of why Minnesota belongs on this list. You get lake culture, fishing, boating, small town life, and enough water to make other states feel underhydrated. Obviously, the drawback is winter. Lakefront living in Minnesota is gorgeous in July. In January, the lake turns into a frozen parking lot with better scenery. But if you can handle the cold, Minnesota gives buyers one of the best combinations of lake access, community, and affordability in the country. Sure, you got to deal with online trolls that talk about how the state's all corrupt and I'd live in Minnesota in a heartbeat. I don't mind the winter. I've never lived in that kind of winter, so I might change my tune after I've been there a couple of years, but I'd live there. Number 5, Wisconsin. Wisconsin might be one of the best states in America for affordable lake homes because the state understands lake life at a spiritual level. People in Wisconsin don't go to the lake. They migrate there every summer like geese with coolers and a lot of beer. This state loves to drink some beer. Them and Minnesota. Minnesota actually got rid of the law that said there's a thing called drunk in public. They don't have it. I mean, you can still get a DUI for driving drunk and all that, but just being drunk on the sidewalk, it's not a thing there. Peshtigo is a great lake town in Wisconsin. Now, they're a little bit pricey for this list, but they're pretty good. The median home value here is about $199,000. That's not nothing, but in the lake house world, that's still pretty reasonable, especially for Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a great state. It's outstanding. I love Wisconsin. The key in Wisconsin is avoiding the markets that have been invaded by Chicago weekend money. Some lake areas are expensive because every second home buyer from Illinois decided that they needed a quiet cabin, which somehow comes with 6 bedrooms, a wet bar, and a pontoon the size of a school bus. But in smaller towns and lesser-known lake regions, Wisconsin still offers a pretty good option. You just, again, like Minnesota, they got that winter, and that winter will, ruin a lot of that lake time if you're planning on doing it all year. You don't want to be like my dad who's beside himself because he's used to Southern California, and he really can't golf right now. Southern California, that man could golf every single day, but here in the Pacific Northwest, he's got to back off a little bit because it starts to rain and occasionally snows. Wisconsin's a great deal for a lakefront cabin. Number 4, Arkansas. Arkansas doesn't always get the respect it deserves in lakefront conversations, which is exactly why it's still affordable. The state has beautiful lakes, hills, forests, quiet places where you can sit by the water without hearing someone explain cryptocurrency on a paddleboard. I can't ever get roped into another crypto conversation. Bull Shoals on Bull Shoals Lake is a great option with a median listing price of around $199,000. That's very reasonable for a lake town with serious outdoor appeal, which this place does. I mean, do so much worse. Arkansas is not the greatest state, but sort of like Oregon, it's got a buttload of problems, but you can't deny it's a beautiful state when it comes to nature. Both of those. Arkansas is especially appealing for people who want fishing, boating, slower living, a lower housing cost. The trade-off is that some areas are rural enough where your nightlife may involve a porch and a bug zapper, and maybe even listening to one guy in town explain why the old hardware store was better in 1987. But if affordable lake life is the goal, Arkansas is quite a deal. Quite a deal. I just go there for retiring. I never let my kids go to school in Arkansas. I mean, they got some nice private schools, don't get me wrong, but if you're putting your kids into the general population there, they don't have the greatest numbers. If anyone ever suggests you move to Little Rock, they're not your friend, keep that in mind. Number 3, Ohio. Ohio is one of those states that people overlook until they realize that actual lakefront options don't always require coming from old money. Lake Erie gets most of the attention, but Ohio also has smaller inland lakes and communities where water access is still somewhat realistic. One great option is Mentor on the Lake, which is on Lake Erie. It's a pretty nice little town with a median listing price of around $199,000. Realtor.com also highlights parts of Lake Erie region as among the more affordable lake house markets, with nearby Erie County, Ohio, showing a median listing price of about $335,000. That was in May of 2025. Ohio lake life is not always glamorous, but that's part of the charm. You get boating, fishing, older lake communities, and prices that are still less ridiculous than the famous vacation markets. It's practical lakefront living, which means the house might not look like it belongs in a magazine, but it also might not financially ruin you. A rare concept these days. Number 2, Missouri. Missouri is one of the best states for people who want lake house without joining a country club or other financial bad decisions. The big name is obviously Lake of the Ozarks, which has gotten more popular and more expensive, but compared to many other famous lake markets, it's still reasonable. The median listing price right now is about $331,000. In Camden County, it's about $399,000. That's not cheap, but for a major lake destination with restaurants, boating, rental potential, and actual infrastructure, it's still surprisingly competitive. I mean, I wouldn't mind living in the Lake of the Ozarks. They got that one place I always talk about, Dick's Halfway Inn. It's a place on the lake. It's owned by a guy named Dick, and it's an inn. Missouri also has cheaper lakes where you can get lakefront property for as low as $210,000, which is pretty good. Missouri's not just one lake wearing sunglasses and yelling from a speedboat. It has a broader lake market menu to choose from. You just have to find the right place. Lake of the Ozarks is not the only lake in Missouri, but it is a pretty cool lake. All right, before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about getting some property, buying some real estate by a lake, there's a link for Home and Money in the description area below. They can get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Michigan. Michigan takes the top spot because it's basically America's freshwater bargain warehouse. The state has Great Lakes, shoreline, inland lakes, fishing towns, cabin towns, resort towns, and quiet little communities where lakefront living still feels like it's something a regular person might be able to pull off with planning, patience, and a healthy distrust of listings that say cozy. Rogers City on Lake Huron ranked as one of the most affordable lake towns by Realtor.com in 2024, with a median listing price of about $142,000. Back then, I kind of poked around. It's probably still that accurate, maybe $150,000. That's an eye-opening number for a town that sits on one of the Great Lakes. I mean, come on. Michigan's advantage is supply. When the state has that much water, buyers have more choices. Not every town is Traverse City. Not every lake has been swallowed by luxury buyers in linen pants. You could still find old-school lake communities, modest homes, fixer-uppers, and small towns where the lake is the main event instead of a backdrop for someone's rental portfolio. Michigan is not perfect. Winters are real, some towns are remote, and some homes need a lot of work. But when it comes to affordable lakefront living, Michigan gives you the best overall combination of water, inventory, scenery, and prices that still seem connected to planet Earth, which every time I look at Zillow, it's starting to look less and less like a thing. Real estate prices are insane throughout this country. That's why this is a great list. If you want to buy a lakefront home, this might be your best option. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this one, you probably like this one right here. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.